one example that's relevant to men is that blue light exposure reduces testosterone levels. And so if you, especially after dark, because after dark is especially when it distorts it perverts our biology, is to have blue light where we ancestrally didn't have it.
Yeah.
Evolutionarily, we didn't have it in the past. So if you are watching TV late at night, like especially after 9 p.m., you can measure your testosterone levels the next day, and they might be like 50% of what they were the day before. And so for
Wow.
a man, if you do that day in, day out, the cumulative effect is quite
Yeah.
destructive to your health overall. Men should have really high testosterone levels.
Welcome to Faust, everybody. I am Faust Chicho, and today I'm excited and delighted to be joined by Brian Richards. Let me tell you about this incredible man and what he's been up to. Brian's a nationally known expert in sauna therapy, light therapy, and EMF science. In 2013, he founded a SaunaSpace, which you may have heard of, a company that combines cutting-edge infrared technology with the age-old practice of sauna. In 2008, Brian faced some important health decisions. Either start taking pharmaceuticals for a series of chronic illnesses that were giving him a lot of trouble at the time, including adrenal fatigue and different skin conditions, or try full spectrum sauna therapy coupled with ancestral practices like clean diet, proper sleep, and yoga. By opting for the natural approach, Brian rapidly transformed his health. And this life changing experience inspired him to create SaunaSpace, which we're going to talk a little bit about. In his journey to develop the perfect product, Brian has immersed himself in the science and research behind light, heat, electromagnetism, and the human body. 13 years later, he brings a refreshing approach to natural living, biohacking, and natural health transformation. It's my pleasure and honor to be. Thank you so much for beaming in, Brian. I appreciate you taking some time out for us.
Absolutely. I'm so glad to be here.
Awesome, man. You popped up on my radar when I first saw you at the first biohacking conference I went to 3 years ago. It was.
Hmm.
But you're like a rock star, dude. You were very busy then, and you're still very busy now. So it's so awesome that finally ran you down 3 years later with the help of my dear friend Dorian.
Wow, that's wonderful. Yeah,
It's cool, man.
amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
we've grown a lot
so,
in the
man,
last 3 years.
you absolutely have. Yeah, it's incredible, and it's fantastic for people, because these therapies, they're so underrated still. So the more they catch on, I think the healthier, people get, and the population needs all the help it's going to get, especially in America.
Hmm.
But let's get into a little bit, man. Like, just your background, where you came from, but also your health journey and how red light saunas really acted as the catalyst for this journey you're on.
Yeah, this was 13 years ago, as you said. Now it seems wild that it's been that long. I was well, I'm still a young man, but I was very young then. I was getting done with my college career, and I had a lot of frustrating health concerns that were kind of nebulous. I was low energy and lethargic. I had this acne on my back. I
Wow.
I had insomnia and mind racing. It was just very difficult to fall asleep. So it's kind of like all of that, of course, made me irascible. It kind of made me bitchy
Hmm.
and negative. As much as I felt like looking at myself, I'm a positive person. I'm full of love and life. But what is going on here? And really, I got recommended to take this acne drug called Accutane, and you
Mm.
can look it up. It's got a lot of side effects. But it really embodied the whole approach for me that conventional medical care takes in using petrochemical based drugs, pharmaceuticals
Mm.
to remove symptoms. And I didn't want that. I wanted to address the root cause, and it just didn't make sense to me. So I did what everybody does nowadays when they're dissatisfied with the conventional medical recommendations, and I went online and started looking online. And I have a chemistry and a math background, and so I was actually reading articles from bloggers and other things online, but reading in the PubMed too, reading a lot of published literature. And I kept coming across the concept of sauna, this idea that you like purify your body of poisons and it heals you. And that in general, this perhaps the biggest contributing factor to disease is poisons we're
Mm-hmm.
exposed to in our environment, and they come in many forms, not just chemical poisons, but electromagnetic poison, negative relationships as well, the negative energy and the low frequency effects that come from surrounding yourself with
Mm-hmm.
those types of people. So all this to say that this made sense to me. And then I looked at the modern and the clinical research, and I understood clinically what sauna does for you. It increases your health span. It basically reduces your risk of dying of all things and reduces your risk of dementia. And there's no other known therapeutic that does this that's been validated by like decades long large cohort human studies. And so
Mm.
it made sense to me. Like I want to be really healthy. I don't want to die, and I want my brain to work well.
And I want to be
This,
happy on top of it, you know.
yeah. Well, when you, that's why they use the word health span. I love that. So it's not just having a long life. It's the health span
Yeah.
is the years of your life during which you're healthy. It's less important or relevant if you're sick all the time. And that so I rejected the sick care, went over to this natural side of things, found sauna as really exciting as a potential solution for me. And then at the end of it, I found the world's first electrically powered sauna that was invented in 1891 by Dr. Kellogg.
Wow.
So this dude, so light bulbs,
1891. Holy
1891, yeah. So light bulbs, incandescent light bulbs are invented in like 1887. And a few years later, Dr. Kellogg, who had a clinic in Battle Creek, Michigan, had a sanitarium. And he's actually the brother of the guy that invented Kellogg's
invented
cornflakes.
the I was going to say that's yeah. Okay.
Yeah, do you know that story? That's a fascinating one. So it's kind of funny.
Wow.
We should note it. In the early 20th
Yeah.
century, out of control male libido was considered a societal problem. So they invented this bland food to try to control that. And here we are now eating
Oh,
cereal
that's
100 years
right.
later, and that objective has been accomplished. Really, there's a lot of problems with low male testosterone, right?
That's right. Because they wanted a way to abate the natural drive and back then morals and ethics, it was a very windy road that they often, were getting lost on, and they were doing things like this more often than people want to imagine and will read about in any textbook. But yeah, so that's I was just reading about that, and I was like, God damn, that makes perfect sense, And when you mentioned Kellogg, I was like, it can't be. It's not the same
It
Kellogg.
is.
It's
It's
got
his brother. Yeah. So
son of
same
a.
family, but and Dr. John Harvey Kellogg also had some ideas that are definitely out of the mainstream. I would consider him though to be on the vanguard of some things. So what he did is in this, he said, "Hey, there's something special about these light bulbs." They didn't know about mitochondria back then. They didn't understand the mechanisms of photobiomodulation, what we call red light therapy or near
Mhm.
infrared light therapy. He just knew that there was something better about it. So he built this big Victorian style cabinet and proceeded to treat like 50,000 patients over 200,000 log sauna sessions. And he documented it all in a book called Light Therapeutics, published in
Wow.
1910. So it's part of actually an early 20th century movement. Um, Dr. Kellogg, Arthur Dinshaw, Dr. Gadiali, Babbitt, or I forget his name, a couple others who were using incandescent light bulbs to heal disease in various different ways. Dr. Gadiali's work is called the spectrochrome therapy, and you can look that up too. So all these guys were contemporaries at the same time as Tesla, and
Mm.
they were using very effectively light therapy to treat diseases. And Dr. Kellogg in particular was using sauna therapy and light therapy together, using the incandescent bulb. So he writes this book. You can read it online, Light Therapeutics, and he documents his success in treating pretty much every type of chronic disease you can think
Wow.
of, from cardiovascular to skin to gastrointestinal issues to like neuropsychiatric problems. And he did other therapies as well, but this is one of his primary ones. So I was fascinated by this, and you can see pictures in the book of how they looked. And he also had a portable therapy light called the Photophore. And so SaunaSpace has this thing. I don't know if we can get it in the camera, kind of right here. It's
Yeah.
called the Photon. So that's a modernization of Dr. Kellogg's Photophore. So I found this. I was blown away. I found a modern doctor's rendition of the incandescent bulb sauna, and I built my own. And I used it once right before bed, and I slept well for the
Hmm.
first time, and since I could remember at that point, and I was amazed, right? So sleep is its own discussion and how important it is to our
Mm.
health. Just getting 6 hours of quality sleep a night with a good sleep score. So wow, I
Yeah.
felt great. I did it the next night before bed. The same thing happened. I slept well, and I consider my insomnia to have been resolved, like in a
Yeah.
couple of sauna sessions. And so that gave me the impetus to use it with discipline for like 6 months. And at that 6 month point, that's when I realized that I was lethargic and I was irascible. And it's sort of like when a car is dirty and you splash more mud on it, you don't see it. But once the car is clean,
Yeah.
you start to note. I also didn't realize at the time that I had brain fog. And
Hmm.
so 6 months later, my energy levels are like through the roof. My patience, my drive, and my mood, my positivity was just transformed, as well as my skin issues all going away. And then of course sleeping well. So I did couple that with, as you stated, switching,
Hmm.
like not eating so much flour anymore, and with that, not really eating processed foods. I wasn't really eating much processed foods, but being a little more disciplined with my diet, being more natural, home cooked
Hmm.
foods type of diet, and doing some body work too, doing some yoga. I was really transformed, and I looked around and I was like, why can't you buy this type of sauna?
Yeah.
Where is this? And that was 13 years ago, and it eventually led to me making a few for some friends and family, and then I got this. And at that time I was doing rental real estate. So after the crash of '08, I moved to Columbia, Missouri, and was fixing up houses. And I'm sitting
Hmm.
there at the same time fixing up these houses, and I have tenants, and I'm a tinkerer, and I love to make things beautiful. So I make these beautiful renovations that were like summarily destroyed in one semester by some tenant who just didn't care at all. And
Yeah.
so I'm sitting in a parallel with that. In parallel, I'm making these saunas. So instead of like with the rent going, having to collect the rent, I didn't really have the emotional constitution for
Oh,
that. I'm
it's a
just a
pain.
nice
People
guy.
don't know. It's a pain in the
It's
ass to be. I mean,
it
people
is
don't
it
understand.
is
People are like, people want to own building, but when you have to be someone's landlord, it can be very, very trying. It's not all they make it
Right.
out to
No,
be.
there's a
I understand.
human component there that's was very
Yeah.
challenging for me. So, and then on the other hand, I'm making this saunas, just a few, and I get these calls back that like made me cry sometimes, where someone would call me up and say, "You
Mm.
changed my life. Like I transformed my health. I got my job back." And at that point, it was a very bricolage looking setup that it came with like painter's cloths from Home Depot, and it had some chicken wire type of things on it. It was
Yeah.
very, very fugly looking, and I was like, "Whoa!" I had this epiphany. I was like, "I'm not doing the right thing." So I literally dropped my tools in this house I was working on, went and I created a logo and came up with the names, formed the company, got a little credit card gateway, made my own website. Before that was done, in the beginning, you had to like email me, and I would email you on
Yeah.
PayPal and stuff. But I started the company basically with a hope and a dream, and a couple $100. And I was able to, after 6 months, get a small business export loan because I'd shipped a couple to England. So this is
Yeah.
a type of small business loan where you get 95% underwriting from the SBA instead of 85%. So it's a type of business loan. an SBA loan, but it was cool to get it because nobody had gotten one of those for like 2 decades in Missouri because nobody exports anything. So I got one,
Wow.
and I walked into this warehouse that I leased out that smelled like, dust. It was an old abandoned
Yeah.
thing, and I started building the company. And in the beginning, and I started insourcing manufacturing and making it all myself. I had my first employee, and I had a terrible experience. I
Oh
didn't do
boy.
very well. I didn't know what the hell I was doing because I had
Yeah.
no business training. I just I've always been detail oriented and trying to look at the big picture. There's this book called The E Myth. It's
Mm.
like you got if, to start and succeed in business. It's this idea that you have three roles. You have the technician, the manager, and the entrepreneur. And eventually you try to delegate that stuff to other people. But in the
Yeah.
beginning, you're doing all three. You got to watch the money. For me, make the product, do the sales. I mean, I answered 20,000
Yeah.
phone calls in the beginning. Then I built it from the ground up. And uh, it took a while. And I went bankrupt, or I almost went bankrupt like 2 times. One time I had to borrow like $7,000 from my mom. And
At
so I had a
least
lot
it
of
was your
like,
mom.
yeah, well, I love my mom, grateful for her. She kept it
Yeah.
alive at that point. But eventually we kind of reached a critical mass of market awareness and product differentiation that's really just accelerated year after year. And
Hmm.
now we have a different sauna. It's a different technology. It's more effective. It's a quicker session with better results. It's more accessible to people with all kinds of problems due to the sort of the experience you
Hmm.
get in there. And it's still made here, so you can see I'm in my factory. I think
Yeah.
the shift ends in a couple hours, but it's still handmade in the U.S., which was one of my dreams. I didn't want to just develop a
Yeah.
product idea,
Yeah.
get like investor funding, and just go to China with it. I wanted it to be.
Slave labor. It. Yeah.
I wanted to make something beautiful. I didn't want to make the cheapest thing necessarily. So that's kind of
I
the
hear
origin
you.
story.
That's an awesome story, man. That's a dream. That's a dream come true story. I love those. And the fact that you dropped what you were doing to pursue not what you were loving, you know,
Hmm.
I think that's a great recipe for people who are listening, who are like, what am I doing? If I love this and I know I can do this, why not pursue it? I mean, why not take a risk? You're here in this life, at least this time around. You got a single go at it. Why stay stuck in a job you hate when you know you have something you love that you could do?
Hmm.
That may just work out. I just see people all the time struggling with this, so I thought
We
it
do.
was worth noting.
You
But
have to do what you love, pursue your passion, and then if you can figure out a way to
it's a
make some
recipe.
money and be independent. So many people are in the
Yeah.
rat race, and they don't need to be. That's also that's the myth. That's the
No,
conditioning. Like there's you can
that's right.
have your cake and eat it too. It's but you do need to think hard. Like, who am I? And what do I love? Who
Yeah.
am I inside? And what do I deeply desire? And I think most people go through life, and they don't even know what they want. And then and then
No,
they get to the point, maybe
they don't.
towards the end, they figure out what they want, but it's like it's quite a bit too late.
It, I see it and hear it as well. It's like, and they're frustrated because they don't know what they want, but they won't try anything new. And I'm just, and I face palm myself. I'm like, if only you could see and hear what you sound like. You know what I mean? You've just laid it all out, and it's clear as day for most people who are listening. Like you don't know what you want, but you won't. But that's because you have yet to go into the unknown. I mean, what do you love? Start doing it and see the opportunities that present themselves. And it's the fear of the unknown. It's a risk. You know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
But but oftentimes, particularly when we're pursuing what we love and what we're passionate about, the universe rewards that the people who are, courageous enough, and passionate enough to just take it, to just go for it. I see it happen all the time. So it's just awesome to hear your story, and to hear. I mean, people who create products that help people. That's a wonderful, delicious, funky kind of karma. I think that I don't know who wouldn't want it. It feels good. I have a toe in that line of work myself, with podcasting and with the way that I try to
Hmm.
share what I've learned, some of the lessons I've learned the hard way in this life, and the feedback I get. There's nothing like it. But Brian, talk to me a little bit about light, right? I mean, in general, it has such a cascade and laundry list of wonderful health effects, and people take it for granted. I mean, people, even if they're just going to go, out in the pool for a half hour, they're like, they got their freaking scuba suit on, and they're covered in chemical sunblocks, and a lot of people are very confused about the benefits, the health benefits of light, and then
Yeah.
juxtapose that, go right into light therapy. Can you talk to me a little
Yeah,
bit about that?
yeah. Well, it's important to understand, why does light matter? So if we start with ourselves, we're taught that we're biochemical beings, in high school biology, but fundamentally we're much more bioelectric. So we have quantum mechanical systems that are run, that are controlled, and are fundamentally uh, electrical in nature, and so
Mm-hmm.
electric fields. And light is electromagnetism, so it's also a form. Electricity is a form of electromagnetism. So the blood flows down the arteries via voltage gradient. There's blood brain. The blood brain barrier is a voltage gate. You have voltage gates in your cells, calcium ion channels, and so many things that are. It's the electromagnetic state of the body that really is a better indicator of health, or lack of health. Human beings have an aura, and you can measure it with a camera. And when you have an incoherent aura, the person is usually in bad health or diseased. And the more the aura is clear, and the larger the aura is, the healthier the
Mm-hmm.
person is. And I'm speaking very wet from a very Western perspective, very like scientific perspective. There's this aura, but then you can also think about it more spiritually or energetically. Like the larger the aura, the higher the frequency of the being.
That's
And
right.
so we're beings that we're energetic beings fundamentally. Energy is at the heart of all things. And there's really, there's three. If you break existence and reality into three planes, there's the physical plane, and the astral plane, and the ethereal plane. And there's no boundaries between them. It's just a difference in frequency.
That's right.
So these physical things we see around us, we're so we're so visually driven beings. If we don't see it, it ain't there, right? But
Right.
that's just a physical object, is just something that is very dense, where the energy is very close together. But if you zoom in
That's
really
right.
close, there's a lot of like space in between the
Space.
matter.
Yes.
And so energy, right? So we're beings of energy. And if we look around, what is the most powerful source of energy in our reality? It's the sun. The sun nourishes
Mm-hmm.
all life on earth. There would be no life here without it. And so we see in nature with plants, and we see with animals as well, which we'll talk about here, are systems within us that harness light and use it for energy and for healing and nourishment, and all the way to like neuropsychiatric health and other things. So we're
Mm-hmm.
beings of life. We've been living on this earth for a long, long time, and we have um, systems inside our bodies that are designed to get sunlight every day. So then the question becomes, well,
Mm-hmm.
okay, so that's light. What is sunlight? What is this light that we're designed to get every day? So if you look at sunlight, it's not like the blue LED light we have indoors that we have all day long in the
No.
screens in front of us. It's not fluorescent light. It's not any. It's not all these types of like modern energy efficient lighting. It's full spectrum light that has a very particular spectral pattern and distribution of wavelengths. And the primary emission of the sun is near infrared. So when you
Mm.
stand outside in front of the sun, most people don't know this. They think, oh, the sun promotes vitamin D with the ultraviolet light, and there's visible light. But 70% of the power you absorb from the sun is near infrared. So it's the high energy infrared wavelengths that you don't see. So when you're outside
Mm.
and you're absorbing the sun's power, it's mostly near infrared. That's your biggest stimulation more than anything else. And we know now from modern science that we have these things called mitochondria. Every cell of the body has them. There are little power plants in our cells, and they have a light receptor protein on them that only absorbs near infrared and red light. And even in contrast to red light, near infrared is a vast majority. And part of the reason why we absorb so much near infrared from the sun is because near infrared penetrates the deepest into the body. So red light
Mm.
doesn't penetrate bone tissue. So if we're wanting to heal our brains and nourish our nerve cells and our deep organs of the body, we need near infrared, whether it's from the
Mm.
sun or as it were from the incandescent lamp, which is really interesting because what is the sun in terms of a light source from a physics perspective? It's an incandescent light source. So in
Mm.
nature, when you heat up a material really hot, it emits light via this really predictable pattern. It's called incandescence. So like when you heat up an iron rod really hot, it glows red.
Mm.
So that's incandescence. So the incandescent bulb is producing light in the same fashion as the sun. And that's the advantage of using this technology, not just for light therapy, but also for sauna therapy. It has these deeply penetrating wavelengths that heat you radiantly like the sun, heat you from within. Whereas a regular sauna is using the air to heat you up. So
Yeah.
regular saunas, they take a lot longer. Your regular infrared saunas, you heat up a long time, you sit in there a long time. Even a Finnish sauna, you sit in there for an hour. With the use of near infrared light, you can heat the body up and achieve the same sweat and temperature increase outcomes in half or less of the time. But to get back
Yeah.
to light therapy, so the sun is mostly near infrared, and near infrared stimulates the mitochondria in the body. Every cell of the body has it, and it does a lot of things. But if you want to think about it simply, it promotes healing in the cell, anti-aging, inflammation reduction, and it has higher order functions that it improves, like immune function, immune
Mm.
modulation, and it also does this thing called or it promotes production of this thing called um, melatonin. So melatonin,
Mm-hmm.
most people think is the sleep hormone. What it is primarily in the body, though, is it's an antioxidant. It's the number one antioxidant. So it's there in the
Mm.
cells, trying to reverse aging, basically, and deal with like stress and free radicals and stuff. And what's interesting, this is actually a new understanding of Faust that only in the last few years, is that it was originally thought that most of the melatonin was produced in the pineal gland due to blue light exposure during the day, and then
Mm-hmm.
released at night after dark to the brain clock in the body to like start the sleep cycle. But what it
Yeah.
turns out that 94% of the body's melatonin is made in the cells, right where it's needed, and it's made by the stimulus of near infrared light. So when you're out in the sun, it's not just healing you,
Wow.
it's like refilling your antioxidant reserves every day, your pool that your cells need. When your mitochondria make energy, they produce free radicals that damage things. But if you're out in this, if you get a good dose of sunlight each day, you avoid this. Or if you
Mm.
sit in a SaunaSpace sauna, get a lot of near infrared in the body, you're little you're refilling your antioxidant reserves, and you're doing other things as well. Like near infrared light photo protects the cells in the body from ultraviolet light, which damages us. So even the sun, people think, well, the sun is good, but the sun is bad, right? That's true.
Yeah.
It's it's got this near infrared that's healing us, but it has ultraviolet and blue light that damage us.
Mm.
We do have some evolutionary adaptation to ultraviolet light in the production of vitamin D, which is also very important. But what's interesting is from the sun, you get this little like small dose of killer wavelengths of ultraviolet and blue, and you get this huge
Yeah.
dose of near infrared. So that's light. That's the light we've evolved under. That's nature's light. It's
Yeah.
analog, broad spectrum, healthy light, and that's why we feel good under the sun, and we feel amazing in front of the fireplace, and we feel amazing in the SaunaSpace sauna. It's because it's using this incandescent light to heat the body. And there's a lot more we could go into the weeds of that, but what scientists call this is photobiomodulation,
That's right.
light
Yeah.
controlling biology. And light therapy is defined as the use of red and near infrared wavelengths to heal damaged and degenerate cells and to improve function, reoptimize function of healthy cells. So when you do that when you photobiomodulate the skin, it looks better. When you do that to your
Mm-hmm.
pancreas, it works better. You do that to your brain and you get neuropsychiatric, you feel better. And then you do that in the whole body, and
Yeah.
and you also see validated in modern clinical research the use of light therapy for really everything, for pain
Yeah.
reduction to stroke recovery to TBI to uh, um, healing from infectious disease, like with the COVID era and all the things that are going
Mm-hmm.
on, like increasing the health of the tissues overall. And so we're designed to be out in the sun. Our ancestors were, and
Mm-hmm.
I think that's, if you talk about disease and health nowadays, like the most the best thing you can do for your health is understand that there's these ancestral practices that you're biologically programmed to be doing, and to somehow mimic those as much as you can in our modern environment.
I mean, what better use of technology could there be? As a simple question. We have all this technology, and like everything else that humans make, that some of them are are totally neutral, and other ones are pretty bad for you in the habit that people have developed that they use them for. There's a lot of man-made light, which is proving to be problematic, and there's a lot of EMFs that cause harm.
Mhm. Man-made,
Which
yeah.
that
Mhm.
kind of bring, yeah, man-made, absolutely. And this is the kind of technology that we need to be wary of and aware of in order to protect ourselves. And at the same time, this kind of education about light and what it can do for you, and using technology as opposed to allowing it to harm you and being unconscious, but in a conscious way to improve your health, your overall health, and optimize your time on this planet, because the healthier you are, the more fun you can have, um et cetera, right? So like my question, I guess, is man-made light and EMFs. We know that, especially now more than ever, it's coming out that a lot of the man-made light, it can potentially wreak havoc on certain systems. And I'm sure that you're more down with the science than most people I could talk to, and also EMFs, right? Like, how can this kind of light therapy help address some of the systemic problems that are emerging from EMFs and some of the man-made light, like the bad guys on that list?
Yeah, so first we should answer, like, why is blue light damaging to us? And are these most of these man-made light sources damaging to us? Most of the man-made light sources are LED or fluorescent, increasingly more LED than anything. LED,
Yeah.
sort of regular home LED bulbs have a very large spike of blue. So the percentage of blue that they emit is much higher than the original incandescent bulb as a proportion to what it's emitted. And then they add in fluorescing compounds to make it look like a tungsten bulb, so it's like yellowish. But
Mm.
there's this hidden spike of blue that's very damaging to us. So blue light is also referred to as high energy visible light. That's why people wear blue blockers now, and you can get like screen filter softwares to, if you take a spectrometer and measure your screen with Apple's night shift on and off, you'll see the amount of blue is dramatically reduced.
Mm.
And that's what makes it more comfortable. So blue light is high energy visible light. It's killer light. It's so high energy that it causes free radical formation in the body. So it causes
Wow.
damage. And you can feel that from your mood, when you work at a
Yeah.
computer a lot or work under the hospital lights, like you just feel, oh man, this is really stressing me out. But at the cellular level, it's doing the same thing, to the skin cells and to all the cells of the body. So in nature, whenever we experience blue light, it was only from the sun, and we got a huge dose of near infrared to combat and reverse the effects
Mm.
of blue light and also of ultraviolet light. Blue light is right next to ultraviolet light on the spectrum, so they're both high energy visible light, but ultraviolet light is even more damaging because it's ionizing. So it directly
Mm.
damages our DNA. It's mutagenic. But so in
Wow.
the interest of the push for energy efficiency, the society, the inventors and scientists and everybody, they were not thinking of the health benefits of removing the near infrared component from our indoor lighting, and the blue light only has it's very deleterious to our health. So nowadays, unfortunately, we're surrounded by it, and it's all built in, and you can't get around it. So the average Western, or I would say the average humans in the modern world's experience with light is predominantly blue. This huge amount of blue light and no near infrared because we're not out in the sun anymore. So
Yeah.
because we're beings of light and we absorb light and it influences us, it behooves us to have the correct form of light. So it's very interesting, but this is the way it is. There's certain wavelengths that are healing and certain ones that are very damaging, and it's really the ones that are really high energy that are the most damaging, and the most powerful healing ones are, no coincidence, the largest dose we get from the sun, the near infrared.
Mm.
So they're very damaging to us in a cumulative way. It's not like in one day,
Yeah.
but it's one example that's relevant to men is that blue light exposure reduces testosterone levels. And so especially after dark, because after dark is especially when
Mm.
it distorts it perverts our biology, is to have blue light where we ancestrally didn't have it.
Yeah.
Evolutionarily, we didn't have it in the past. So if you are watching TV late at night, like especially after 9 p.m., you can measure your testosterone levels the next day, and they might be like 50% of what they were the day before. And so for a
Wow.
man, if you do that day in, day out, the cumulative effect is quite
Yeah.
destructive to your health overall. Men should have really high testosterone levels.
Netflix and chill at your own risk, guys. At your own testosterone risk.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and just people on their phones and their apps
Yeah,
all
of
the time,
course.
especially after dark. So you asked, like, well, what can we do about it? There's a lot of things actually we can do about it. The night shift mode on the Apple, on the Apple devices, you can get programs like Flux and other programs to
Oh, cool.
change reduce the blue light by putting a screen filter on. You can wear blue light glasses. You can also change some
Yeah.
habits, like don't watch TV more in the day unless super late at night, especially as a routine
Yeah.
thing. You can do the same on your phone too. You see those people in the super dark, and they have their phone on full
Yeah.
power, and it's this big flashlight in their face. So you can avoid that stuff. So that's the sort of limiting your exposure to this thing that's
Yeah.
damaging you from the environment. But what if we could do something to reverse it or improve things? And that's one of the things you can do is you can use my bulbs. You can use uh, the photon therapy light that we have, and incandescent light in general, but particularly this because it's primarily near infrared and it doesn't flicker because it's like this very large bulb with that's high
Mm.
wattage. If you introduce this near infrared light into the environment from this product, the photon and also the sauna, it
Yeah.
actually cancels out the measurable blue light you can measure with a
Wow.
spectrometer. And it also cancels out the measurable amount of flickering light. And these both result in improving the photonic environment around you. So you can be indoors, have all this LED light around you. But if you have one of these little happy lights next to you,
Wow.
it is creating an environment wherein the light is more like the light outdoors. So we're bringing that outdoor spectrum
Right.
indoors with the introduction of this light. And so it's a way to mitigate like technology fatigue and screen fatigue. And
Got it.
that's another thing. I mentioned the flicker. I should talk about that real quick. So
Sure.
LED and fluorescent light bulbs flicker. They actually turn on and off. LEDs turn on and off 120 times a second
Wow.
in the US because we have 60 hertz electricity. So that's 120 times the LED is going like this, like a strobe light. And you can see this if you take a video of a light and watch
Slow
it
it
in slow
down.
mode.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the flickering light has also been shown to be very stressful. It's a sympathetic stressor, so it gets our nervous system excited into fight or flight state.
And
It's
it's unconscious
literally,
because you can't see it. It's so damn fast. So it's a double whammy.
yeah. So it's this double whammy. So this new light, this LED light, it's all flickering, and it's all blue. And these are two like swords that are stabbing you
Wow.
all day long. And so one thing we can do is reduce our exposure to it, but another thing we can do is to introduce near infrared incandescent based lighting, particularly this type of
Yeah.
bulb, to improve and re-optimize the indoor lighting environment. And since we're living indoors all the time, we all need to work in front of the computer somewhat. Not all of us, but
Yeah.
so many of
Some
us
more than others. Sure.
to
Yeah.
survive and be financially independent. So it's a great, it's a hack. It's a great hack. And I say
Yeah.
hacking in a positive sense, like
Sure.
we're hacking our environment to try to make it mimic the ancestral context more.
I love this. So tell me, man. So let's say, tell me how you use it, and also like let's say, I'm moving into a new recording studio. I'm moving into a new house, but it's going to have like a new space, a lot more space than the place I'm in, and it's very exciting. But like, so let like I want to, I'm going to outfit it. And also, like I have kids. They're 9 and 12, and these kids, I'm trying to teach them about the dangers of the technologies that they enjoy using so much. They both have blue light blocking glasses. I think you probably know the brand. I think it's the brand that's at the conference. Night Dark, I want to say, maybe. I think that's the brand. They're but
Dave
so
Asprey's
they.
products, yeah. True Dark, I
Yeah, I
think.
think it's Asprey's. Yeah, True
Yeah.
Dark. That's it. Um, so they both have a pair of those that they know they have to wear if they're going to be anywhere near a screen. But I also force them outside. But I'm thinking about, like, if I want to use your light, how do you set it up and use it? Like literally, what do you do? Like, you put it up, you like just keep it there for how long, or like how? Tell me the ways I can
Yeah,
use it.
yeah.
Like, because I'm
So the
interested.
photon, the single lamp product, the photon therapy light, it can just stand up on the table like this, and it can tilt
Mm-hmm.
and be at an angle, or you can just put it on its back. And in all three configurations, you can just have it like, it just needs to be near you. So if you're at the desk, it's on your desktop, and
Oh,
it
cool.
it doesn't even have to face you directly, because if you're facing it, if it's directly pointed at you, you're doing targeted therapy, and you usually limit your
Yeah.
durations of that. But if it's next to you and pointing up, it's correcting the lighting environment in front of you and all around
Oh,
you,
cool.
and you can leave it on all day. As long as you're in the room, you can leave it on. It can. So
Yeah.
I come to work, I have one on an accessory. We sort of outfit this special desk arm, and it mounts to that, so it's kind of cool because it's like off the desktop. But um, it's can be used in that
That's
fashion in
awesome.
any home environment. So if I'm in the living room, just put it on the coffee table or the end table and just have it next to you. If you're
Yeah.
watching TV, have it on the floor or on an end table pointing towards you. And
Yeah.
then after dark, it's blue light free lighting, so it's optimal lighting for after dark. So especially after dark, you want to turn off your overhead lights. If you're going to
Yeah.
continue to use lights, have a desk lamp or sconce lighting, on the sides that's
Yeah.
lower. So ancestral humans, after dark, did have light, but it was the
Yeah.
bonfire. It was down low,
Right.
and it was sort of this near infrared spectrum. So you can use it as this kind of like happy companion with you all day long. And so in my house, I've got, of course, a lot of them. I've got, one in the living room and
Right.
one in the bedroom. And then I definitely, whenever I work at the computer, I have it with me, because
Mm.
even here at the factory, we have some halogen light in here, but we also have some LED light from the screen and a spotlight I'm using
Yeah.
right now. And so I pretty much always have one with me when I'm working at the desk station. And
Yeah.
also after dark, as much as possible, I try to exclusively use this incandescent light as the only light source. If you need another light
Yeah.
source, you can add it in and at least have this in to mitigate it. But you'll find that this is enough light to like chill with your family and read a book and hang out. And so it's pretty much with me all day long, and I travel with it and use it in addition to using my sauna for the full body health benefits. I
Right.
use that like 3 or 4 days a week.
That sounds like a recipe for great sleep, and great health to me. I mean, just in general, I think a lot of times people think that something's wrong with them when they put their heads down and they try to go to sleep, most of them don't understand that, you just literally spent 2 hours on your phone or your iPad or Netflix or on your brand new big screen TV, which is also, you're just bombarded. You're literally staring at a source of light that is wreaking havoc on your idea that you're going to get to sleep in any expedient fashion. And then they think, oh, I've been having trouble sleeping. No, yeah, you've been having trouble sleeping, but it's not because something's wrong with you mentally. It's because physically
Mm.
you've been doing these things that are the opposite, that your body needs the signals to go to sleep, right? So to
Yeah,
me,
yeah.
this is just like,
People should understand it's like, so it's an environmental stressor, and the ancestral humans,
mm,
they had like the bear. The bear would pop out, and you
yeah,
would have a what's called a fight or flight response. Your cortisol goes up, and your there's various changes in the body, and your nervous system flips into fight or flight, and you get ready to respond. It's a very energy intensive response state
yeah,
that's designed to keep you alive. And that's great. But once you escape the bear, you relax into what's called parasympathetic, rest and digest nervous state.
mm,
And ancestral humans were in the resting state 90% of the time, maybe even more. But nowadays, it's flipped because of these things in our environment that we don't recognize consciously as
yeah,
threats, but our body's program and is recognizing them as threats. And blue light is one, and a man-made electromagnetic stress is another. And it's almost like a
mm,
cognitive dissonance, Faust, because you don't see the threat, but you feel the threat.
right,
So, like, yeah, it's not a problem,
right.
but your body's screaming out and saying, "Please turn this TV off. Like, give me a break from all this EMF stress that
Yeah,
you're
so
giving
that
me."
that little feeling in your stomach, it's not just from the show you're watching on Netflix. It's all, it's a it's so it's such a mind fuck, because as if we don't have enough problems dealing with, like, all the triggers that we get growing up, and kind of, the lifelong task of unwinding all the programs that we got that are not serving us from our parents. And then there's ancestral trauma, and on top of all that, we have all this going on with technology. And it's like, no wonder mental health and physical health is in such a steep decline, particularly in America. I mean, most places that are, modern, but America in general is just, I mean, I think we're like 64th in life expectancy. We spend the most money on healthcare. I use that term very loosely. I should say sick care, because that's truly what it is. And I mean, an obscene amount of money. And we're 62nd in life. And some of the countries that have longer life expectancies than us, I mean, dude, it's just
Hmm.
insane,
and
to
and
think that,
it's also important to
yeah,
know, yeah, we're the most wealthy, right? We should have, in
yeah,
terms of countries, we should have the best, not just the best healthcare, but the most awareness and the most the highest understanding and appreciation of it. And yet, I don't remember where I read it, but I read it was in either New York Times or something else, where from like 2020 to 2022, life expectancy in the U.S. dropped like
yeah,
2 or 3 years.
of
Some
course. Yeah.
some
A
that's
significant amount. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
that's never happened before. It's like unprecedented that it's never dropped. Usually it changes by like
Yeah.
a fraction of a year, and to have that huge drop is a big indicator of we're doing something terribly wrong here
Yeah.
for our health in the U.S.
I mean, everything about the way the health crisis from 2020, let's call it, was handled, it was very, very wrong. I mean, just completely against just common sense understanding of health, and the way the human organism functions socially and emotionally. And of course, that's health. But Yeah, that's a whole nother podcast.
No, no, yeah, but not getting into that. I would like to present an interesting a report.
Absolutely,
So,
sure.
the Surgeon General of Massachusetts in 1919 published a study um, concluding that the best uh, looking into how to treat influenza-caused pneumonia. So this is right after the Spanish
Hmm.
flu, the last pandemic, the greatest pandemic the world had ever seen prior to this latest, COVID
Yeah,
pandemic. And so he found in all of his research that, and he published it. You can read it in 1919. That guess what is the best way to cure and ameliorate influenza and pneumonia uh, caused by influenza? It was sunlight and fresh air.
I bet I can guess. Yes, that's
It was
right.
fresh
Yeah,
air and sunlight,
amazing.
and so even in the during the pandemic, there was then current research very effectively using near infrared light therapy to treat pneumonia in hospitalized patients and increase tissue saturation, help get oxygen to the tissues and help keep people out of the hospital and to keep people from having to go on ventilators while they're in the hospital. So light
My
therapy,
God.
it has such a, a powerful role in this new era, of infectious disease that I guess we've entered into, but also fresh air. Like, and we should say that
Yeah,
too. There was all that emphasis on the wearing of masks
yeah,
and even
and not going
outdoors
outside.
and not going outside, but outside it's so the reason the outside is safe in terms of airborne pathogens is because the sunlight again hits the water in the
Yeah,
atmosphere and it creates it creates peroxides. So the
yeah.
outdoor air is like 2 to 3 parts per million peroxides, and indoors,
Hmm.
unless you have ultraviolet light filter on your furnace, which you can get, and I highly recommend those, the indoor peroxide concentration is 0 ppms.
Wow.
So indoors, pathogens can stay alive in the air, but
Yeah.
outside they can't. So yeah, it was really unfortunate and disturbing that we were kept
Hmm.
from the things that are the highest value for our health. Value being like high benefit, low risk, and these
Yes.
things are so low risk. Low risk. They're sauna, for example, and light therapy. They're so accessible to really every human, every disease type, and it's at the same time
Yeah.
so not really not just misunderstood, but not understood at all. Not the public is not aware of how powerful these things are.
No, no, and that's by design, if you ask me. Like a lot of the quote measures that were put in place not to maximize health, but to maximize, I guess you could say the opposite, to continue to keep that going, what they had created, the environment they created, and the agenda that at play, which again is a different podcast, but
Hmm.
is worth noting.
Yeah.
It's just it's a tragedy in a lot of ways, and what the greater tragedy is the fact that most people are kept ignorant of this kind of education, and it seems, could it be that simple? Yes, almost all the time it is that simple. It is something as simple as light that can make the difference in your overall health. And whether are end up in a hospital, which is the third leading cause of demise. I forget what the
Right. Iatrogenic
Latin
death.
scientific. That's right. That's what it's
Yeah.
called. It's the third leading cause of death behind cancer and heart disease. Now, isn't that something? I just met a guy who I knew growing up. He was close friends with my father. My older brother passed away earlier this year, and he was at the funeral. I haven't seen him in 25 years. And as usual, he was exuberant, full of life. He came up to me and he, gave me a hug and said he was sorry. He was like, him and his wife. And then 2 weeks later, I got a call from my dad, and he said, "This guy," he said, his name is Paul. He said, Paul's dead. I said, "What?" I just We just saw him for the first time in 25 years. He said, yeah, he went to the hospital because he was having stomach issues and went to the hospital. They found cancer. They tried to do, I think, either a biopsy and he didn't even survive the biopsy. He was gone. They said he died of
Wow.
cancer. I was like,
Wow.
listen, I don't know if he died of cancer or not, but he probably would still be alive if he didn't go to the hospital. Just saying, he seemed perfectly healthy when I saw him. He was
Mm,
full of life, Um, just
mm.
amazing how fast it could turn that way, And I'm not, look, hospitals are very important, and the work they do can absolutely be life saving. I'm not taking anything away from Western medicine and surgeries and life saving care, but the overall state that they do things these days needs to be seriously scrutinized and changed because it is completely symptom pharmaceutical petro oriented, and
Yeah,
that's not
they're good
about
at trauma
curing
care,
anything.
and they're good at
Yeah,
emergency care. They're not so
yeah,
successful with treating disease. And
no,
nobody wants to go to the hospital anyway. Like I'll go if I'm in an
no,
accident, I need some surgery, but otherwise I do everything in my power
yeah,
to take care of my health. So I don't even have to go to the doctor, much less the hospital. And the solutions
so
are really
man,
simple. Sauna and light therapy are really central to good health. Those aren't the only things. Love is really important. Love is the
yeah,
opposite of fear. And the more we're in love and being loving
absolutely,
to others, and the more we control, it's okay to have fear and feel fear, but we can't let it control us, especially what you mentioned at the beginning. I liked how you said that, the fear of the unknown. That's an
yeah,
understandable biological event, but we're also designed
hmm
to overcome that, and to to go out and conquer that fear, and that includes in the health space. Like people spend so much
yeah.
time reading reviews and stuff when
My
they buy an
God,
iPhone case. They use a lot of strong logic and consumer science to
yeah,
like invest a lot of time in that, but then when it comes to their health, they we suspend all of that consumer logic, and
yeah,
we export our decisions to this
hmm
priest, in this white frock, this medical doctor.
right,
When we have intuitive understanding, we have super intuitional knowledge that we're born with, that we already have on
absolutely,
what's good for us, what's good and bad for us. But we're
yep,
conditioned to rely on the opinion of others, especially in the health space, to where
right,
nowadays people like, and it always is a sort of frustrating for me when I hear someone say, oh well, studies say this, but studies say the opposite thing too, and there's all these studies, and I
absolutely,
don't know who's
yeah.
right. Like there's sort of a logical fallacy given there, and it's the important thing is that you know yourself and figure out what's right for you, and sometimes it's trial and
That's
error.
right for you,
A lot of
and
people
sometimes
benefit
what's
from.
right for you is
Exactly.
yeah. Go ahead.
Some people are great on a carnivore diet, and others do terrible on it, and sometimes it's for a
Yeah,
season. You need to change your diet for a season and then switch it back, and so it's not a one size
that's
fits
right.
all, but certainly in terms of light therapy and sauna, it really is kind of a one size fits all. Everybody benefits
Yes.
from it, and we need to sweat. So our skin is used to detoxify, and if we don't
hmm
sweat passively in a sauna or in a hot tub or something like that, we don't use our largest organ of the body, one of the three primary detoxification systems that keep the poisons out of our body. If we don't use sauna and we don't sweat, we're only using basically our kidneys and our liver, our two filters, and they really get
Yeah,
overworked and overwhelmed. The ancestral humans had this. Every human culture on Earth has some kind of sauna tradition of some
that's right.
kind. So it's really beautiful
Sweat
that
tan
there's.
sauna tradition. Yeah,
Yeah, the sweat tents in Ireland, they had like little caves they went into, and
yeah,
Japanese hot pools, and the ancestral wisdom harmonizes really beautifully with the modern research and indicating this is it's one of the
It usually
sort of
does.
minute for
It
minute
almost,
one of the biggest
yeah.
impacts you could have on your health.
It's amazing how such wisdom and ancestral and indigenous knowledge, about how to take care of yourself and the traditions that have kind of popped up tribally and culturally and, each different, I don't know what you like, they all had their own version of it, but there's
Mhm.
such wisdom there and it's been lost so much. So when I see like a modern day man like yourself who has done all his homework, and realized that this is a huge missing piece, that needs to be brought forward. I take my hat off to you and the work
Thank
that
you.
you're doing because it is so important. We need all the help we can get. We are like trying to stem, staunch the bleeding of what's happening with our health, and so it's this kind of knowledge. It's products like this that are, they add up and it makes a big difference. I know for a fact it does because I changed my habits and my understanding of my health years ago, and I mean I haven't had a cold in, I don't know, 4 years now.
Yeah,
Nothing, no,
yeah.
I don't deal with any of that. I take care of myself even when I start to really tax myself physically, and I know how to recover now using things like this, using therapies like this. This is how you stay ahead of the game and keep your body running in a way where you're like, you don't have to go to the doctors and start popping antibiotics, which you should never do anyway, unless you have like 105 fever and or a festering wound like you saw in old westerns. I don't know if you, sometimes they would get shot and they would
Yeah.
have to take they would get feverish, and then those antibiotics that then those are life-saving, but you got to be there to, or else they're, you're doing more damage than you can imagine. But Brian, man, I'm so grateful for your time, man. I love what you're
Thank you.
doing, and definitely going to contain, I'm going to tell everyone where they can read more, find more, and look for your products.
Yeah, absolutely. So you can find us at sauna.space. That's our website. You can go on there in our Learn Center and learn all, sort of see more about the spectrum of the sun and our spectrum of our bulb and the science of sauna and the science of light therapy. There's a research archive in the footer of the website if you like to look at the research. I've organized a lot of it by topic, so that's pretty cool. But that's all on sauna.space. You can see our products. You can call us or chat with us to talk to a real, actual human over here. It's all handmade in Columbia, Missouri. We have a store here if you want to come by and see it, but otherwise, we ship worldwide. And if you want to see more content, our handle is at SaunaSpace on Instagram, YouTube,
Cool.
Twitter, and LinkedIn and stuff like that. So I've done a lot of deep dives, especially on Instagram. It's a great content if you want to see with the meters how the sauna we have that's a Faraday cage, how it works, how grounding works, and
Oh, nice.
light
Yeah.
spectrum and all that geeky stuff. That's all on there. So yeah, it's all sauna.space or SaunaSpace on social.
Cool, man. Oh, I love that stuff, dude. I'm gonna check it out too. Yeah. So, I mean, while you're sitting in this, you're actually in a Faraday cage, which protects you from the bombardment of EMFs that you're getting by being in proximity to Wi-Fi, computers, and cell phones, and towers, and everywhere, are these things. And so, it's, if you're interested in that kind of science, check out his IG page because it's really fascinating how that works. And you should be
Mm-hmm.
educated about Faraday cages and how they can, I have one over every router in my house. Um, and I have a version of them over my phone, over my iPad, um, that blocks the EMFs. Anyway, Brian, it's been a pleasure, my friend. I know you're a busy man. I appreciate your time very much, and I'll keep you posted as to when we're going to premiere this episode and make sure that you're made aware.
Yeah, thank you, Faust, for having me. I'm grateful to have been here. It's been great.
It was a pleasure, Brian. It was a pleasure speaking to you, honestly, and I wish you all the best all continued success and the best of luck with this awesome product you've made and everything you're doing, man. God bless
Thank
you.
you. Thank you. Same to you.